Other real deal number 2, seller source. We got the seller through responding to their Craigslist ad. They were marketing it for rent on Craigslist. The after repaired value was $210. It's in a nice homeowner neighborhood, and the current renters that had been there for 3 years were moving out. Sellers were okay either with a strong renter or a tenant buyer, whichever came first. And this was, I think I mentioned them before, this was the sellers that were in Costa Rica. We've never met them in person. We did things via Skype. And in this situation, because they're willing to continue to rent, we will tell this owner, we'll say, it's very likely we're going to find a renter before we find rent to own. And so Keith is having that conversation, do you really want to ultimately sell? Because that may take a little bit longer than a renter. But they were fine with, this situation was both, so we kind of adapted and deviated a little bit from our norm because of that circumstance of the seller. Our tenant buyer found us through Zillow. I do not post on Zillow. I use VFlyer, which we'll talk about more later. And VFlyer posted it to Zillow for me, along with to a bunch of other sites. The tenant buyer had a job relocation. They were under a deadline. He was actually staying at a hotel here in Baltimore until he found a place, but his wife was still back. It was either New York or New Jersey, I can't remember. But the husband saw the house in person, and the wife relied on the YouTube video, which we'll talk about that too. We do video tours of all of our homes when we were living in Baltimore. So if you go to our website and look at our older listings, you'll see there's a video tour. And that will seriously help you get ranked, and it will very much help your website ranking. They were short on the down payment that we were advertising, because typically our minimum is 3.5% to 5% is typically what we market, or $5,000, whichever is greater. And they were a little short on that. So what we ended up working out, they had $2,200 down and $1,650 for their first month's rent, which normally for a straight rental, you're just getting 1 month's rent. Sometimes you can get a little bit more, but Maryland in particular caps you at 2 months rent for a rental, a security deposit. The rent to own price was $2,099. And the way this guy's job was structured, he added to his down payment, to that $2,200 down, $400 a month, because he had a special bonus structure that he got every month. So we structured the contracts. It's a deviation from what we do to the norm, and it was doable only because the owner was fine with renting it anyways. So even though it's not the best, perfect rent-to-own candidate that we're looking for that would have had more down, there's still a notch or two above a typical renter. So we're still delivering more value. So in this situation, after 18 months, they built up $9,400 down, and we negotiated with the owner to get $3,000 of that. So overall, our profit on this deal was $6,400, 22 of it being up front and the rest of it over time. And this was the one I mentioned before, where it just so happened, and we were still in Baltimore at the time, the sellers were out of the country, couldn't be done in person. All the contracts and paperwork were done remotely, and all the communication we did with Skype. And actually nowadays we're not even doing Skype, we're just doing phone calls. It's enough, but the Skype really helped in this situation. So typically we don't do down payments over time. It complicates the paperwork because you do have to do it right to make sure it counts as a down payment. There's a lot of wrong ways to do it where it won't count. In 95% of our deals, we get the full down payment up front. So rent to own is designed to be very flexible.